Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew discusses Commander-related topics. And today, we are coming to you from Richmond, Virginia, from a hotel, Crim's hotel room to be exact. This is the first day of the SCG Command Fest in Richmond. We're super excited to get to the venue and do all that wonderful Commander stuff over there. But right now, we want to dive into the brand new pre-constructed cards from Baldur's Gate Commander Legends 2. We just got to play with them last night, and it was super fun. We played with the pre-constructed decks right out of the box.
Yup.
And it was super sweet. And now we have a good idea of what the cards are that are pretty good, that we're hyped for playing, getting our hands on, and playing with immediately. So joining me, as always, is Crim, the Asian Avenger. How's it going, Crim?
Yo, I just woke up. Everybody walked into the hotel room, so I'm awake.
Right on time.
Yep, perfect.
You couldn't be late.
Could not. Impossible to miss this podcast.
Fantastic. Good to have you awake. And as always, we have Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How's it going, Seth?
Good, Tomer. How are you? Excited?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I played a bunch of these cards, and a lot of them really impressed me. And I think even they're more impressive than the cards from the standards, or not the standard set, the draft set, I would say.
It really, I think that's true somehow. Because the main set, the power is like meh, but like these Precons are so good. So good.
And I think if people saw the main set and they were disappointed with it in terms of power level, I think there's going to be something for them. Because there's at least like two cards I would say are going to be included in most decks that they can go into. At least two. And you might convince me on more of them, honestly. All right, we'll just jump into the list. Seth, kick it off. What we got here?
Let's hear a card list. So number one on my list, we have Astral Dragon, and this card is so sweet. It's super expensive.
Yeah.
It's 8 mana. You get a 4/4 flyer, but when it enters a battlefield, you make 2 tokens that are copies of non-creature permanents, except they're 3/3 dragons, in addition to the other types, and they have flying. So essentially, you're getting 10 power and toughness across 3 bodies. But the real power of this card is it just has so many shenanigans. The first thing I thought of when I saw it is I want to copy Terramancer's, and then you get even more ATB triggers. But it does way more than that. There's like a bunch of infinite combos where if you target the right thing with this, you can just keep making dragons, keep making tokens. It's just so much fun. And I think this is, even though it's really powerful, it's also a fun card because it's 8 mana. Like in an 8 mana, you can do a lot of crazy things and it's not going to break the game. So I'm really excited. This is a card I just want to resolve the most, I think. And it's ETB trigger, so you can even blink it and do shenanigans that way too.
It's not legendary either, so
Yeah. I think 8 mana is going to be the rough part, but surely there's going to be ways of cheating this in play. This is a dragon, right? It's a creature, so if you're in black, like paying 8 mana, that's not happening. You're going to pay like 1 for reanimate. You're going to pay 2 for like an animate dead effect. So getting it into battlefield, pretty easy. Red sneak attack, also just 1 red mana if you're like a Perforos player or something.
This is where I miss Richard to be like 8 mana ain't what it used to be. Back in my day, 8 mana.
We had to pay for it. We had to go up in the snow.
Yeah.
Right. Walk uphill.
The kids these days, they get their 8 mana for nothing.
I didn't even have 8 islands in my deck. I had to go to my neighbor and borrow his islands.
I actually do not have 8 islands in my deck, so yeah.
Imagine playing basics in 2022.
As far as combos, this goes infinite with Cursed Mirror, I think is the most obvious one. It's a mana rock that when it ETBs, it becomes a copy of a creature. So if you target that with the Astral Dragon, you just keep going and make infinite hasty, almost like the Splinter Twin combo and win the game. I think you can also do it with this weird old enchantment called Dance of Many that is worded in a similar way. It's like from the dark or something.
ETB.
But ETB, keep copying it. So yeah, there's infinite combos. You can reanimate it. You can blink it. It's just a really fun card.
It even works with Oblivion Ring. Any like enchantment that enters the battlefield, exiles something until that leaves the battlefield. As long as it can target your own stuff.
Yep. You keep blinking it and looping it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a high cost, but the top end is you just win the game.
Yeah.
And the bottom end is you copy, like, your Panharmonicons. You're a blink deck. You're going to be putting this in a blink deck. you're going to get the value, right? Like, it's worth the cost, and you can cheat on the cost pretty easily.
Is it the best way to close out the game?
Yeah.
It might not be, but is it like one of the coolest and most unique and fun ways to close out the game? I think that's probably true.
Being 2 partner Marcons.
I wonder how many times I like that stays true though. If once you do this enough times, is it still cool?
Yeah,
to
maybe
keep looping like every time. Although I think this is just fun even without the infinite combo, right? So you don't even need the infinite combo to like make it worthwhile. Just like being able to copy 2 random enchantments or artifacts or something like
copy
that.
lands, do some ramping.
Yeah.
8 mana ramp 2 lands. Okay,
The saving grace, if you're a Dirtle player, the saving grace for the rest of the players is that they are 3/3 dragons with flying, so you're going to have lethal eventually, right?
Yeah.
So there is an end to the madness, which I appreciate. If there's a Blink archetype, if they have just really good offense, that just makes the table happy, I think. So good job, Wizards. All right, we'll move on. Krim, what is your first card on the list?
So, I played with it, I got it actually, like, in person yesterday, and this card has been pretty fun to, like, play with. So, Brainstealer Dragon, which is 5 and 2 black. It's a dragon horror. Flying at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were any color, yada yada. But whenever a non-land permanent opponent owns enters the battlefield under your control, they lose life equal to its mana value. So this is just a cool big dragon that allows me to just continuously just keep exiling the cards off the top of everybody's library, and then it slowly drains everybody at the every time I play one. So I don't know, it's just a cool big like Timmy kind of dragon that also does like kind of like the typical like things that I like, which is like playing my opponent's cards. So I'm always a fan of anything that will just play my opponent's cards, and it's a horror type. So that actually adds a lot because I already have an Umbrus deck. So, and then of course the commander itself, like, so a lot of things with the horror type.
I mean, people play Stolen Strategy, right?
Yeah.
And that's like 5 mana, and it's an enchantment, and it's
Triggers
essentially
on your upkeep, whereas your end step.
Yeah,
and
this
like
gets immediate
even
value.
if this gets like blown up, I think you can still play it.
Yeah, it's just 2 more mana,
Right.
and it's got a bunch of upsides, and it's a
Right.
6/6 flyer, and it can close out the game, so it
Right.
seems really good. And alongside, like, the Theft decks, seems good, like, a lot of cards in these decks seem good in, like, Prosper, the Play from Exile game is, really popular right now, so I feel like they're good there as well.
Yeah, I really like this as a top end. Like, this is like the big threat, right? And that kind of like play style. So this is just a cool dragon. Like, it's such a cool dragon. It's so Timmy, and it's perfectly a type that I'd like.
Yeah. I also like the fact that like the second trigger is not dependent on the first one. The first one exiles unless you steal permanents, but the second one is just like whenever you're casting a permanent that you don't own. So like if you have an Evelyn deck or something and you're looking for like a crazy top end, this is a way to close out the game. Or maybe a Gaunty deck, or for example.
Yep. Tasha, the new witch, Planeswalker.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun to play this with Tasha.
Again, it's 7 mana, so it's really expensive, but you're in black, which is the best color in terms of reanimating creatures on the cheap. So again, reanimate, animate dead, necromancy, anything. Those cards also kind of work well in a theft deck because you can target your opponent's graveyards, so it fits the theme and everything. So I'd be more hesitant if you don't have any ways of cheating this into play. But if you have those cards anyway, and you have ways of putting the dragon onto the battlefield on the cheap, I think this card gets really, really good.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, moving on. We got my first card from the list, and this card was a blowout. This card, we filmed with the fine folks at Commander Versus last night, and that's going to be going on to our channel. They're going to be getting a video up on their channel too. We're probably going to coincide it sometime in the next week or so. This card, when it was played, completely changed the mode of the game. Like, it just took over. And this is Delayed Blast Fireball, which is a beautiful card, a beautiful spell from D&D. This is a instant spell, 1 and double red, and it has two abilities. First is you can cast it at instant speed, deal 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control, but it also has Foretell of 6. And if you cast a spell from exile, it deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. So for 3 mana, you have an instant speed asymmetrical 2-mana board wipe, mini wipe. It will kill smaller creatures, utility creatures, token creatures. However, if you cast it from exile, such as when you foretell it for 6 mana, you can deal 5 damage to each creature instead. And 5 is enough to kill basically anything in Commander.
The instant speed is really nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
And the foretell is kind of expensive, but it's important to note that it's whenever you cast it from exile in any way. So if you cascade into it or have whatever, a prosper effect, we were just talking about the dragon. If you somehow exile this with the dragon and cast it, like that would still count as casting it from exile. You'd still get the 5 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like Prosper All-Star, but I think like honestly, I was so impressed by this card, even for 6 mana, because the fact that it's instant speed, it really felt, and I know this is high praise, it felt akin to like a Cyclonic Rift, honestly. Ooh. It really did, because like, just imagine, like the power of Cyclonic Rift, if it was a sorcery speed, we've already seen it at sorcery speed, it's bad, it's not great.
Yeah.
But when it's at instant speed, like, and asymmetrical, instant speed, asymmetrical board wipe, and there's not that many hoops, like, yeah, it gets better in Prosper, because you can pay like 3 mana instead of 6 and get that effect. But I think I would put this in pretty much any red deck. I think it would go like Blast and Sack and Delayed Blast Fireball are my go-tos now for red board wipes.
Is 5 damage enough though? Do you think that's enough?
Yeah.
That was my one question when I first saw this card. Like
it killed everything.
It also exiles, so I think that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty rad, right? Like I like that.
I think there was a specific commander at the table that it couldn't kill, but it wasn't even in play. So it just got everything. It didn't matter.
Was it Nyathrod?
Yes, it was perhaps. Actually, you know what? Let's jump into that one, or we're gonna mess. Yeah, let's go for it. That was a good segue.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, so as you figured, the next card that I really loved, I played the card and I thought it was a bit like at first a little bit clunky at 5. Then I actually played it and like, holy cow, this card is sweet. It's Captain Nyathrod. 3 in blue and black. Horrors you control have menace. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. In the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact, creature, card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from the library this turn. Put it onto the battlefield under your control. Wow, this card does a lot. I really did not expect it to like as soon as I played it once, I hit Corey and like immediately just got like his Steel Hellkite.
Yeah.
So this card does work. Like, wow. It's the milling of it, so it fuels itself. It kind of does everything itself. It also makes it so your horrors actually can push through, because the menace really did matter.
Yeah, that's what surprised me, because I was in that game too, and the menace came down, and it made it really hard to block. It does need stuff on the battlefield. Like, if there's a downside and it comes down an empty board, it doesn't really do anything. But if you have a few horrors out, this is going to generate a ton of immediate value.
It's also 3/6, so, like, that's a beefy body,
It survives a Delayed Blast Fireball, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, like, this just seems like a super sweet horror commander.
So... what's the big horror commander? Umbrus?
Yeah.
Would you play this over Umbrus if you were going to build like Horror Tribal?
See, I have
Horror
that.
Tribal, yeah.
I have Umbrus already, right? And now I'm like thinking, like, well, I don't know, which one do I like more? I think Captain Nyathrod might be better because, like I feel like the playstyle is still a little bit different. Although the other one is still Horror Tribal-y. This one actually feels more Horror Tribal.
Yeah.
As opposed to like Umbrus, which feels more like you probably want to build a Voltron-y deck.
Yes.
So they are different horror playstyles. And I think I like this to celebrate more horrors, and it plays more of my opponent's things.
Yeah.
So I like this card infinitely more.
Umbrus for sure if it's Voltron. But horror, this just helps out horrors. And I mean, it is a horror itself, and it does buff itself in its own way. So if you do have like a Lightning Greaves or something, it can get value by itself. Not by itself. It requires the Lightning Greaves. It needs a haste enabler. So it doesn't really do anything on its own turn when you cast it, but it's pretty easy to get its value.
It gives itself menace too.
Yeah.
So it does support itself well,
And there are big horrors that I was on the receiving end.
Sludge monster.
But even like a Chasm Skulker, the Chasm Skulker gets huge, and the weird thing is it has, I think, Island Walk, but that's not really relevant if your opponents don't have Island Walk. If you give it Menace, especially if it's already big and your opponents are like, oh, I have a chump blocker on the battlefield, and then you play the captain, you could potentially kill people if you're now menacing horror. So I respect it a lot.
And horrors have a mill theme. Like, that's one of the things the Horror Tribe does, and all the captain cares about is the cards getting milled that turn. It doesn't have to be from its ability. When I first read it, I thought it only cared about the cards that you milled during combat. But it's any cards you mill during the turn, so.
Yeah.
You gotta choose at the beginning of your end steps.
So if you have Consuming Aberration and other like mill horrors going, you can have a lot of selection as far as what to steal with this.
Yeah, putting an artifact or creature was nice. I'm being a little bit nitpicky. I wish I added enchantments too, but other than that,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It would be a little bit of a color bend if it got enchantments.
Hey, they can play whatever they want anyways, right? So like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, all around a really sweet horror commander.
Would you put it in your pirate tribal?
No.
Absolutely.
That cares too much about horrors.
Yeah.
Are there other horror pirates?
No.
Okay, yeah. Probably not.
All right. We'll move on to Seth. What do we got for your second card on the list?
So I don't know if this card's all that strong, but it is just like such a me card that I had to put on the list, which is Aboleth Spawn. It's a 3-mana 2/3 fish horror. It has flash, it has ward 2, and then it's essentially a Panharmonicon for your opponent's creatures. Whenever your opponent plays a creature, the ETB triggers something, you get a copy of that trigger. You can redirect that target. So it's literally a creature Panharmonicon that only cares about your opponent's stuff. So the challenge is, like, Panharmonicon, if you're playing it, you build your deck around it. You can put a bunch of ETB triggers in your deck, so you know you're going to trigger your Panharmonicon a bunch of times. This is totally dependent on your opponent's deck. But when this card was spoiled, I actually looked through the top, 100 creatures in Commander or whatever, and there's a lot of ETB triggers. Like, the typical deck is going to have Solemn Simulacrums and Eternal Witnesses. So I think, even in just a random play group, it's not going to be as strong as Panharmonicon, but I do think you're often going to get triggers, especially because of Flash. So worst case, kind of like Opposition Agent, you can wait until someone has a good ETB trigger on the stack, Flash this in, and you'll get that one trigger for sure. And I don't think people are going to not play into this. It's not as hard of hate as like Opposition Agent, where it's like, you don't get to do your thing. So I think people are still going to run out their stuff because they want to execute their game plan. So even though you can't control it the way you can a Panharmonicon, I think you're still going to get enough value out of it. And it just seems super fun to play with.
It is pretty fun. I actually, like, that was also in the same Precon I was like, that I love so far, the blue-black one. But I'm a little bit sad it's only creatures.
Ooh.
I wish it was just like if anything entered the battlefield, and it caused something to trigger. I think it would have been pretty interesting.
Would it be too strong? I feel like it.
It probably would have been too strong. But like I liked it. It was still. It seems like a pretty fun card still. Right?
And it's got a little bit of protection. I think, and this is a case where the ward 2 might matter because. Who wants to spend their whole turn killing this thing? It's a 2/3. It's not like a real threat to like close out the game. And even the ETB thing doesn't seem that impactful. You're like, whatever. They can't build around it, so. It might stick around for a couple turns.
I think there's going to be some times where your opponents are going to be high on the threat list of this. For example, like, let's say you have an Eternal Witness in your hand and you have something good that you want to get back, but then you also notice there's a spawn on the battlefield and they have something that good that can get back. That probably will be enough for you to either want to waste a removal spell on this or just not cast your Eternal Witness. But that's like a win-win for the spawn player, right? Like, either you're gaining whatever the ETB triggers are, or you're making your opponents not play out the cards they want to be playing. It's a win-win. And then if you have like Panharmonicon and stuff like that. Like,
and the dream scenario,
you have more value.
You're up against the blink deck and they Lazelle's Acrobatics or whatever, the mass blink, return everything, and you just like flash this in and God, so much value.
Every ETB trigger. I mean, so good.
Even in our play group, Richard also loves, if he plays like white decks, he always plays blink. Like if you're into blues or something on this and you respond, it was fun. You're like, this dog draws a card when it ETBs. Well, it's mine now.
I definitely plan on jamming it in a bunch of decks for the near term, just because it seems fun. And we'll see. Maybe I end up cutting it eventually, but for now, I'm really excited to just throw this in random decks and see what happens.
Yeah, situational, but sweet.
Needs to steal the ETB.
I think it was like
you get their ETB.
Ooh. This is the dark side. All right, we got. A card that I also I stole this from Seth's list actually because I think a lot of us are going to be very impressed by this card. One of the strongest cards, but this is a hype list, by the way. We don't do this is not like a power ranking guide for anybody who's like never seen our top whatever, say our top 9s. This is just like what we're most hyped to play with, but this also happens to be really strong as well, I think. And this is Black Market Connections. This is a black enchantment, 2 and a black for an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose one or more. And there's 3 options here. First is sell contraband, create a treasure token, you lose 1 life. The second option is draw a card, you lose 2 life. And the third option is create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling, you lose 3 life. So you choose one or more, so you can choose just one option, or you can choose all 3 options. So you can either choose to like lose 1 life and make a treasure, or you can choose 6 life and make a treasure, draw a card, and make a changeling. You know which one I'm choosing every single time, obviously. And I think it's going to be correct almost every single time. Yeah,
it's all of them.
All of them. Like, why not? Because also, if you're losing life, now you've also put a creature token onto the battlefield, so that's kind of like preventing some life loss too if you need it.
And the mana lets you cast more stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so I played this card in my Precon yesterday. I had it on turn 3. I chose every mode every time.
And?
I lost a ton of life.
Yeah.
But really, because of all the value you got out of this, I roughly stayed with the rest of the table in terms of life loss. Like, the way everyone else was losing life naturally throughout the game, but I had a bunch of creatures I could block, I could attack with. I had extra mana, so I could deploy more threats. So it kind of ended up working out. And you're in black, so if you want to, you have really good life gain to, like, refuel and play Grey Merchant or Exsanguinate. There's tons of ways to, like, gain back some of that life. And you don't have to choose every mode. Like, if it gets too sketchy, you can have, like, a slightly more painful Phyrexian Arena or something, like, if it does get to that point. But I chose the max every single time, and I was super happy with it.
Yeah, I think this card single-handedly kept you in that game.
Yeah, we ended up all getting combo killed in the end.
Right,
So,
but like, regardless, right, like, up to that point, like, after every sweeper, this card kept you in the game, right? Like, you'd gotten swept away so many times, but it just built its own board, and this was a very, very good card.
And
like,
it's really also important that the token's a shapeshifter. Like, this comes in the party Precon, and it's normally really hard to get a party going.
Yes.
Shapeshifters are like a cheat code to make that happen. And my board kept getting wrath, my stuff kept getting killed, and I was still able to just, every turn or two, have a full party, in large part because of that shapeshifter token.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, like, this card just was a very astonishing, like, card to, like, see in action,
So my question is, do you just play this in every black deck? Obviously, if you're in tribal, it's great because of the shapeshifter, but just generic black deck, do you just jam it for value?
I mean, if you're playing it Phyrexian Arena, I think this just replaces it for me.
I mean, but why are you playing Phyrexian Arena?
Right.
Normally, we're a country away when you say things like this. Now you're sitting right next to me.
I know, and you're so...
Phyrexian Arena.
You're quite bigger than me. I was like, maybe I should...
Phyrexian Arena, though, like, this is just, you replace
This card
it,
is
right?
straight
Like,
up
you just
better.
replace
I might play
Arena.
both.
What do you
I'd probably
remove?
play both.
Oh, you'd play both, okay.
I like drawing cards.
Baby steps.
Other than that, though, I do think you need to play it in a deck where you can offset the life loss.
Yeah.
Because
So-
6 is a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I know from Sylvan Library days when you always take the 8, like, that adds up fast.
Yep.
Especially because, like, you're basically inviting the aggro player to just finish you off, right? Like, you're getting a lot of value.
Tempting.
Yeah.
It was tempting to kill Seth numerous.
Although, I got a lot of political capital being like, hey, I'm taking 6 a turn anyway. I'm killing myself. Like, why bother attacking me? That argument actually worked pretty well with the
I
rest of the
definitely
table.
did not attack. It's like, okay, well, you just bleed out yourself, right? Like, that's fine.
Yeah, but the combination of ramp, card draw, and a body, which the body, like, holds swords, it does whatever, if you're sacrifice, if you're party, if it fills anything that you need, like, this is an entire package for 3 mana. The 6 life loss is going to be a lot, but yeah, offset it. If you can offset it, you're great. Obviously, tribal. I had to say it. I was waiting for it, but it makes a changeling. Obviously, I'm putting my tribal deck. Obviously. And I'm putting my Toshiro mono black deck, too, because I need all 3 modes are relevant.
I mean, we've talked many times about how ramp and card draw are like the 2 most important things in Commander, and this card does both of them for 3 mana and 3 life a turn. Even if you don't take the body, like treasure and draw for 3 life.
I'll take that
every single turn. That's great.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Seth, what is the final card here?
All right, so I really wanted to include a commander on my list, and for some reason I really like this card. It's a new background commander. I think it's the best of the background commanders. Baeloth Barrityl, Entertainer. 5 mana 2/5. It's an elf shaman. It's a red, and it says creatures your opponents control with power less than its power are goaded. And whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you make a treasure token. Mono red, but since it's choose a background, you can pair it with any color that you want. And I think this is really sweet because of the mass goad. Goad is a mechanic that's being supported more and more, but a lot of cards are like goad a creature, goad target players' creatures for a turn. This can goad the entire table every single turn. There's some backgrounds that work really well with it too. There's one that makes everything Raised by Giants, turns your commander into a 10-10. So if you have both those on the battlefield, even curves into each other, you essentially just make your opponents attack each other each turn. You're not going to take damage. So it's like this weird style of Voltron deck almost, where it's Voltron, but you don't even really need to attack. You just protect your commander, load it up with equipment so it's power high, and let your opponents kill each other. And if you do want to attack, because you're goading everything, your opponents aren't going to have any blockers because they have to attack. Yeah. So you can sneak in and one-shot whoever you need to with your commander. So I think it's just a really neat style of goad commander, and I think it's actually pretty powerful if you build around it in that way and play the right background.
Yeah,
I love this. The thing is sweet, right? Like I think goading decks though are always awkward, just because you want to see people punch each other, but you never want them to die,
right?
Because once they die, it's like, what am I doing here, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I think you nailed it though. Like I feel like this is going to be the Voltron goat commander, because there's a large investment that you have to do. Like Baeloth by himself, I think is not that strong without any support.
It's only goading one
to zero,
which is nothing, really.
Which it's not goading that much. And also a very important note with Baeloth compared to a lot of the other goad commanders, usually whenever there's a goad effect, it's usually until like your next turn. Like Cardor, for example, it's not, well, that's not goad, but it's like Omega goad. It's like until your next turn, everything's goaded. Furkrog, Furby, whatever, the is it Dragon Precon leader? That one, it's also like goaded until your next turn. Most effects, Disrupt the Decorum, all of these are goaded until next turn. This is a static effect. So when Baeloth is off the battlefield, the goad no longer applies. So what your opponents could do, for example, is you could play Baeloth, and then your opponents could be like, all right, pre-combat main phase, I kill Baeloth. All right, now I just swing at you.
I kill you, yeah.
Yeah, now I kill you. So it's not as... It is a strong goad effect, but it's a different style.
Yeah.
So you really need to invest in Baeloth, like pumping up his power, so you can actually goad everything at the table, and then making sure he sticks around. Because the
Lightning
worst
Greaves,
thing,
Dark Steel Plates, like anything you can do to keep it from dying.
Indestructibility. Like the worst thing ever is if you have an opponent who has a big board state, and you assume or hope that Baeloth will stick around so that they may remain goaded, and then they kill Baeloth and kill you. Like, you can't have that situation. But I think, like, this works naturally in a Voltron deck. Like, you pump up Baeloth, and you can swing with just free reign on the table, and you feel secure in the knowledge, if you set it up properly, that your opponents can't swing back at you.
Also, getting the treasures is like, my god, that's so good.
That could definitely make a lot of mana.
Yeah.
And Goat has just gotten a ton of support. We were talking about like Crim's, not Crim's Dragon rather, but we've got a lot of Goat cards that in these Precons and Commander Legends that care about your opponent's creatures attacking each other, them dying during combat, and getting a lot of benefits for that. So I feel like this is a commander that's going to keep getting stronger, because beyond treasures, I think Goat is like Wizards' pet mechanic for Commander now, and they just love printing new Goat cards, new payoffs. So I think this is going to get better as we continue to get more Commander products.
I have a question for you all, because this is a hot button topic. One day on Twitter, I noticed that there was a big hubbub when Baeloth got released the same day. People were like, Goad is too strong of a mechanic right now. Goad is takes away player agency and preys upon aggro decks too much. What do you think about those issues? People are like, too much Goad. Goad is becoming too much of a problem. Wizards of the Coast, please stop goading.
So maybe it's just our play group, but I have never viewed Goat as even a little bit problematic. If anything, I've thought it's too underpowered, because I never see anyone play it.
It's not even on the radar for problematic for me. And like, if it's my aggro decks, I'm still playing removal in my aggro deck, so I still need to kill this, right? Like, sure, it delays my aggro plan, but at some point, the others will die.
Yes.
Yep.
And Goat does nothing when it's 1 versus 1.
Correct.
Right? Like, it stops becoming a mechanic when it's 1 versus 1.
So this is a Goat is so awkward. That's why it's not too powerful to me. Because like, it's once people die, you are the only target, and then everything you do is moot.
In a lot of ways, I like Goat as a Commander mechanic, because Commander has a tendency to get really dirtily.
Yeah.
And games take 4 hours, and like everyone's blinking and just, cyclonic rifting, and the game never ends. Goat forces people to get in there and attack, and it forces a game to progress. So I actually, kind of in a weird way, like Monarch, how it encourages the game to keep progressing forward. I think Goat is actually like a really good mechanic if it's not too overpowered, and I don't think it's too overpowered at this point.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think Baeloth's the strongest of the goaders. It's a very interesting take on goad, but I think like Cardor, for example, is just better if you're in Rakdos, because it's like, it enters the battlefield, all your things are goaded, even the stuff that you haven't have on the battlefield yet is goaded. Like if you have something with haste, it's goaded. You can kill Cardor, but probably that plays into his plan because it's a reanimation deck, it's a blink deck. Then you have that peace of mind. Like you can pass a turn and you know that none of your opponents are attacking you that turn cycle. This one, there is always that fear of if Baeloth gets removed. But like even Cardor, I made a Cardor deck. I can tell you from experience, goad is not that strong. It's good against aggro decks. Sure, aggro decks that have no backup plan and also don't have a lot of removal options. Then, yes, you're going to beat them down. But what does this do against a combo deck? The combo deck is like, whatever. The sacrifice deck, the deck that taps their creatures for activated abilities, those don't do anything. Like I tried goading. I used Furzentwad. I don't remember his name. It is a dragon, and I tried to goad Daniel Holt was playing the Gruul commander that has a tap ability, and I goaded it because it was the only creature there, and he's like, I'll just activate it. Whatever. I didn't want to attack. And then one time he was like, I'll attack. It doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, great. So I think goad's like healthy. I like that it pushes the game forward, but it has so many weaknesses that like, yeah, maybe it will be a problem if you make like a 1 mana Omega Goad for the rest of the game emblem effect. I don't know. Eminence Goad. I don't know. But like, we're not there yet.
I don't even think that like at some point it's capped, right? Like it's just once people are dead, your deck gets significantly
when so one people, what are you doing?
Yeah, like
if anything, I think people complain about how many treasures it can make. I thought that was like a hot button thing to complain about.
I guess people got bored of treasure discourse and they went to go to Discord. I thought it was just so funny when I opened it on like my Twitter feed is just like people complaining about Goat. Like, what? Okay, you don't like Goat, I'll just switch to my board wipe. I'll take away your player agency. Your creatures must go into exile and you have no option in there, good sirs. I don't know. Anyway. Raid's over. All right, moving on. Oh, this card did work as well.
So, the next card is from the Catacombs, which is 3 black. Return target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield with a corpse counter on it. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. You take the initiative, and it also has escape. So, and it's escape 5 specifically. This is more than just a reanimation spell. Because the first off, the thing I like about it is that you also get the initiative every time, right? And I mean, although I feel like initiative isn't like the most absurdly cracked thing that you could be doing, it is still just additional value that you're just getting, and you're getting the best creature. And oftentimes, because it's in the horror tribal deck, this is a good thing that something gets exiled, because often the times like the horror cards care about what's in exile, things going into exile. So. Just that and constantly repeating the ability over and over with escape. So this is just a sweet reanimation spell.
So my question is, we're playing Commander. You got Reanimate, you got Animate Dead. Like, Black has really efficient reanimation. How does this compare to those kind of cards? Like, if you're playing a relatively high power reanimation deck, do you think this makes it into your list based on its repeatability? Or is this more of a card for like medium power reanimation decks? Where do you think it actually fits?
This definitely fits probably like I think in like a mid to like low to mid power, right? Like there's a difference in that. Like example, this doesn't care if you blow like Animate Dead. If that goes, you know the creature's gone, right?
Right.
This you just get the creature until they answer it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like the fact that it's like again, it's not as mana efficient though as Animate Dead or Reanimate. So that's just always going to be true. But you don't lose life, so that's not bad. It's a solid mid to like low to mid power level, like non CDHE kind of like reanimation spell.
It's a little like an Uro or something almost in a weird way. Like as long as you get a full graveyard, like in the late game, it's just you're gonna keep getting a threat back. You're gonna keep getting a threat back, and the initiative's gonna add up eventually too. Yeah. So it's never gonna do those explosive. Like we were talking about the blue 8 mana dragon, where it's like, oh, if you get that on turn 2, it's gonna be really busted. Like. This is never going to do that, but in the late game, this is going to generate a ridiculous amount of value.
I don't think I would jam it in any like all reanimate decks, but especially a self-mill deck, I feel like its escape mechanic becomes really good.
Yeah.
Like if I was playing Sidisi Broodmother, I forget the name. It's a Sultai one.
Yeah,
and
Brood
it's all
Tyrant,
about
yeah.
Brood Tyrant, and you want to self-mill yourself a lot. Or if you're a style of Phenax, or I guess a style of horror, anything that wants to mill yourself, then you just put this in your graveyard and you get it back with escape. I think that's really potent. And the worst case is the first time you cast it, taking the initiative, for people who don't know, it lets you venture into the Undercity dungeon. And the first room of the Undercity dungeon also lets you get a basic land. So you can kind of think of it that way, like you're immediately paying 5 mana, get a creature, get a basic land out of your everything, and then just more initiative is gravy after that.
It's a sweet value card.
Yeah, and if you mill it, it's kind of like drawing an extra card.
Yeah, that's what I'm
have
thinking.
To draw. It's kind of like drawing 2 extra cards because of the initiative, actually.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to value initiative yet.
Yeah.
I really got to play with it more.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun mechanic, but I have really no idea if it's going to be like pretty strong or pretty weak, so...
In Constructed, I assume it's going to be pretty weak, but in Draft, I assume it's going to be pretty strong.
Can you draft this?
Oh, you can't, not this card, but like the
mechanic
draft
in general,
set. Yeah, the mechanic in general. Like, none of us have played with it yet, and I don't know if I would be able to play with it on Magic Online.
Right.
But I like it. Maybe it's neat. Maybe we'll get to play it at Richmond. Because we'll be playing with paper crits. Oh, sad times. Anyway. Moving on to... Oh, okay. All right. Again, this is not a power ranking scale. It's not. But we happen to like some powerful cards. All right? That's a coincidence. All right?
You have so many spiky cards.
I'm a spiky boy. All right. Deep Gnome Terramancer. Probably one of the strongest cards in the set, I would say. This is a 2 mana, 1 and a white, 2/2 Gnome Wizard. I love Gnome Wizards. It has Flash, and it has an ability, triggered ability, that says, whenever 1 or more lands enter the battlefield under an opponent's control without being played, you may search your library for a Plains card. Not a basic Plains card, any Plains card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Do this only once each turn. So, for example, if your opponents play a fetch land and then immediately crack the fetch land to get another land, put it on the battlefield, this will trigger the Deep Gnome Terramancer. If your opponent plays a rampant growth effect and gets a land from their library and puts it onto the battlefield, this triggers Deep Gnome Terramancer. So basically, like any green deck and any deck that runs fetch lands is going to be triggering Deep Gnome Terramancer pretty consistently, and you're going to be getting any planes. Not just a basic planes, but like dual planes, your shock lands or whatever, if you need mana fixing and stuff. And it has Flash. So your opponents can't really play around it, at least the first one, and then they'll have to think about subsequent things, but nobody's going to play around this.
No.
It doesn't even need Flash.
This card...
I think it does need Flash. Yeah, like...
It has Flash?
Yes, it does have Flash. You should watch Seth's game. It's great. It's great.
I actually think this is just the best white ramp spell you've ever printed.
Yeah, probably.
One of the things about white ramp is it almost all is catch-up ramp, where it only works if you're behind someone else in lands. This doesn't have that restriction. You can have the most lands at the table and still be ramping with it, which is absurd. And it's getting non-basic lands if you need it to. It can get plains, shock lands, original dual lands. And you're playing a white deck, so this is helping turn on your Emiria. This card's busted. This card's
really good.
It's insane. Like, I think I would put this in any mono white deck. Like,
I put it in dual color decks, too.
I put it in dual color, yeah.
Monocolor, yeah, probably. Dual color, though?
Yeah? Why not?
Probably not Selesnya.
It's 2 mana, and if it ramps a single time, it's paid for itself.
I mean, if you think about it, yeah, people play Loyal Warhounds and Knight of the White Orchid. Like, those are guaranteed to get you at most 1 land.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get you 0 lands.
It's a white 3 visits that you just have to wait until your opponent gets the first one going for you. But then after that, if it ramps twice, it's like an Omega 3 visits. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the card's...
The card's really good, yeah.
I'm like actually... kind of worried about this. Honestly, like we just did a podcast about ranking colors.
Yeah.
And white has moved up the rankings quite a bit in the last couple of years. And this is just like the cherry on top of the cake for white. Like now it can ramp without catch-up ramp.
It's only once a turn, though. So
But
opponent... Yeah, once each turn.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, whenever an opponent does stuff, like, yeah, sure, it's really good. Like, there's potential that in a turn cycle you get 3 lands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But... I don't think it's that bad. Like, I mean, I think it's like as in broken. I don't think it's that broken. I think it's a very good card.
I don't think it's broken. I'm just worried about the overall power level of White. Like, if they're getting this style ramp on top of, like, the best sweepers and the best targeted rainbow, like...
If this becomes a recurring trend, like, if every single set we're getting, like, a white ramp card that's as good as Deep Gnome Terramancer, I'd be like, that's kind of weird. I don't think it's busted. I think it's very strong, but I don't want, like, 1,000 of these.
Yeah.
And... honestly, like, I like this one a lot, but also I don't think it's, like, I think it's very good. Its ceiling is preposterously high, but I do like the value of, like, say, a Knight of the White Orchid, because usually you can play a Knight of the White Orchid turn 2 and get a Plains card, and it's untapped.
Yeah.
And I like that versatility. Obviously, you can't get multiple ones, but you could blink it, and it is catch-up ranked, so it's a little bit harder to get recurring value, but I do like the idea of, like, I'm not a turn 2 player or whatever. I can play like an Knight of the White Orchid pretty easily and ramp, and I'm good.
I also really like that it's worded whenever your opponent has a land come into play that wasn't played. Some of these cards have, like, their second land each turn. Yeah. It makes it really easy to play around them with fetch lands. You're just, like, play your fetch and then wait to the next person's turn to crack it.
No, you can't
Deep Gnome Terramancer doesn't care. Like, when the fetch is cracked, if it's on the battlefield, you're going to get to ramp. There's no playing around it or anything.
Green,
I kind of want to see that last line of text removed. Do this once only each turn.
But that would be so broken.
Because, well, like, imagine if your opponents had a Deep Gnome Terramancer and you had a Deep Gnome Terramancer.
Everything
just be like, oh no,
super deck them.
No, thank you. I'm happy with that once each turn. But yeah, this card is gas. So you wouldn't run in all multicolor decks?
I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd run it in like every multicolor deck, but I think it's very good in the decks that it's going in.
Okay, 2-color?
Yeah, 2-color. I could see that. Sure, like blue white or whatever, black white. I could see that. Yeah,
I definitely run it in all monocolor. Probably a decent amount of 2-color.
Yeah,
once I get up to 3 and 4 color.
Yeah,
the question is like
how many planes?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Am I gonna have enough planes? It is nice that it hits on triomes.
Yeah,
and dual lands. So maybe you're gonna have enough planes even in like a 5-color deck. Honestly,
my hot take is I would put it obviously every mono white deck. 2-color decks, absolutely. 3-color decks, I think. Almost always, because I'm going to have enough dual planes. Like, I think if you have like 6 dual planes, you're good. Like, I just want this to trigger 2 times. If it triggers 2 times, it has been more than worth the slot to me. And then anything beyond that, like, if I do fail to find after like the 3rd or 4th trigger, whatever, it's got its value. I'll send a Gnome Wizard on a Skull Clamp or something.
What if you're in green, though? Like, do you need this if you have green and you have access? Like, would you still play it if you're, whatever, Selesnya, Abzan, those color combinations?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I would. Like, I feel like if I have the green ramp, then maybe I don't need this, even though it's still good, but...
Yeah, I'd be the person setting off the Deep Gnome Terramancer. Colors, so yeah.
Enjoy. Yes. Drown them in planes.
Exactly.
And then they have a land tax on the battlefield and they cry because they know they'll never trigger the land tax again.
Yeah,
I guess that is a downside, though, actually. This shuts down your catch-up ramp.
Well,
like, if you ramp too much with this, then all your catch-up ramp cards are going to turn off.
But then also, if you ramp too much with this, then you're like, okay with the catch-up ramp.
Yeah, then I guess you're fine with your Cartographer's Sock being bad.
Oh, boo-hoo, I have 8 lands on turn 4. Like,
you went through a lot of steps to catch up to green.
Yeah.
That is hilarious how much you would have to do to have this plus your catch-up ramp at all points.
And also, despite how much, like, I think white is, I think, the best ramp color outside of green. Like, second best. But, like, the difference between first and second is still astronomical.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm okay with, like, these cards. I would like to see maybe, some of the other colors getting some interesting on-brand ramp options. They don't have to be as pushed as Deep Gnome Terramancer, but, like, it would be cool. I don't know.
I think need to buff blue.
I think blue deserves like a little bit of
Dreamscape artists.
So what's that thing where it's like you get to put a land into play essentially if you
retraced image?
Yeah.
I run that in Spellslinger. I was a big advocate for that, a stan, if you will, for retraced image. And then there was another one that's even worse. It's like from your library. Oh. If you like find an island on the top 5 cards of your library and you have an island on the battlefield, then you get the ramp. Otherwise, it does nothing. Like,
sounds risky.
Super suspicious way to ramp.
But yeah, like the fact that people are citing these as like incredible blue ramp options really shows how dire the blues options are. Like, you have artifacts, obviously it's not dire, like it's not terrible, but like it would be cool to have on color options for all the colors, you know, to ramp. So I'm happy with this card. I'd like to see other colors get stuff too. All right, I think that about covers it.
Yep.
Boom. That was not that long at all. I guess it's only three of us. Richard is not with us here on Richmond. He's hanging out in LA. And I guess that's it, everybody. What do you think about the Precons as a whole?
They are much stronger than the normal set. Like, I think that everything in here so far has been a lot better. I really like the power level of these Precons and the cards that, like, the new cards. I'm not even just talking, like, reprint-wise, because obviously you have Jessica's Will. That, like, so yeah, like, they nailed it on the reprints for the Precon. And on top of it, they had the power level perfect. Mm-hmm. And they did a really good job, I think, with all these Precons in supporting, like, archetypes that, like, in, like, weird things in certain archetypes, like more goading. I thought that was really cool. More play from your opponent's exile. That was also super sweet.
I think these are some of the best Precons they've made in quite a while.
Yeah.
Like, we get so many Precons now, it's easy to overlook some of them, and this is just, like, definitely deserves your attention. Really good round of Precons, and I hope they make more like this. Like, they really nailed it in all aspects. It's got good reprints. The new cards are good. They cut down a little bit on new cards compared to past Precons. I think there's 9 per deck instead of, like, 15 or 17. And I hope they make more like this in the future, because these are some of my favorite Precons they've made in quite a few years, really.
Yeah, I had my first go around with them in person, and I really enjoyed it. I did not do a deep dive on the Precons themselves in terms of like how much ramp they have, how much land they ramp, but from seeing them in practice, at least from those 2 games, it seemed really good. So it looks like they're well constructed. And I can tell you from a fact, like, I've been reviewing the Precons for like 6 years now, and every year consistently they do increase in terms of how good they're made, how well-rounded they're made, and the new cards are really sweet. So,
and they felt pretty balanced. If it's something you want to each get one for your play group, like, at least that was my experience.
I think the Gruul deck might be a little bit stronger than the other ones. I think one of the Watsy might have mentioned maybe the Gruul deck is a little bit stronger than the other one, but
It did win both of the games.
It did win both of the games.
Yeah.
well, let us know if you play with the Precons. Let us know which commanders or Precons you found to be quite strong. I don't know if anybody has them yet. Actually, this is going to come out. Actually, it's going to come out.
No, by the time this comes out,
maybe
people should have ability. Yeah.
Yeah. They seem like a blast. So hope you enjoyed them and hope you enjoy the new cards. If you don't want the Precons, buy the singles. That works too. All right, that's it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want to help this channel grow, and until next time, friends, see ya.